What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be a Legendary Claude review along with the skills that you could run on him, and also overall a banner review of the other units and the skill options on them. I'll be rating these units based on their performance as well as their fodder potential, and I do make a lot of FEH videos, these banner reviews, so if you are new then do consider subscribing and leaving a like, so your support is much appreciated. So Legendary Claude, I was really not expecting him because I thought he would appear in April because we just got Seros as the last mythic unit who was also from 3 houses. So I'm extremely happy to see Claude finally get his legendary version. Claude is my favorite 3 houses lord, and his route was the first one which I played. I like him a lot as a character as well, so I'm pretty happy that he is finally here. He is a colorless bow flyer, same as his Brave version. He's actually an Earth pair-up legendary unit. He is not a Wind unit, which is a bit surprising, but Earth also makes sense because it goes with his color palette, and he is a pretty grounded character after all. Yeah, he's quite down to earth, so Earth does make sense as well. So here he is, and he's actually a really strong unit. Failnaught, his legendary weapon, gives him -1 special cooldown, and just the fact that it can give him such easy effects is insane. So if he's above 25% health, which is gonna be most of the time, then he gets +5 to all of his stats during the combat, and he gets null follow-up. So this is pretty much same as Marita's sword, but even easier to trigger, does not even have the solo condition, just needs to be above 25% health. So extremely consistent and very powerful weapon. Null follow-up in general is a very good skill right now because we have so many auto follow-up and follow-up negation skills in the game that null follow-up gets a lot of value. So this being built into his weapon is really good, and as it is, flyers cannot even have access to null follow-up, so this definitely makes him stand out. He also has a new lineup skill in attack speed catch 4, so I believe this is probably gonna be a branch option from the brazen skills, kind of like how unity skills are a branch option from the bond skills. So at start of combat, if the foe is at full HP or if penalty is active on a foe, then you get +7 attack and speed during the combat. And if both of the conditions are met, meaning that if the foe is both at 100% HP and has a penalty active on them, then you get extra +2 attack and speed for a total of +9 attack and speed during the combat. So I would say that this is a pretty good skill, and it's like a good side grade to solo skills and push skills. So this is gonna be active in both phases, which is really good for someone like Claude. And getting penalties nowadays isn't really all that tough because we have got options like sabotage skills, we have ruse skills, we also have something like Temari dagger. So it's not the hardest to get the penalty on these kinds of enemies to activate the condition of it, at least the primary condition. Of course, meeting the secondary conditions, which requires both of the conditions to be met, can be hard at times and might have anti-synergy with stuff like Savage Blow, Upheaval, or any kind of chip damage that you might have gotten. So it can be a bit annoying, but still overall this is a pretty good slotted skill that can provide you with extra attack and speed in both phases. Claude has got Fallen Star as a slot B skill, and this is actually a pretty toxic exclusive skill along with his weapon. The reason being is that it makes him really annoying unit to bait out. So if he initiates combat, he reduces damage from foe's first hit by 80%, and after combat he gets the Fallen Star effect and also inflicts the gravity on target and foes within 1 spaces of the target. And Fallen Star is basically an effect that is going to be exclusive to him, and for 1 turn for his first combat and player phase and the enemy phase, he can reduce the damage from foe's first attack by 80%, and he's definitely going to be a pretty annoying unit to bait out because of this effect, because the thing with Claude is that he is really fast. He's going to be really fast, and he has null follow-up in his weapon, so your auto follow-up skills as it is do not work. And because he's a flying unit, he can run something like Sturdy Impact and the impact skills in general. So even if you're faster by Claude by some kind of way, you're not going to be able to double him if he runs an impact skill. So he's going to be able to have insane survivability because of this damage reduction, at least in the player phase. And in the enemy phase, the gravity effect can definitely help reduce the amount of units who could attack him. But still keep in mind that gravity effect, even though it's present, it can be bypassed by stuff like teleportation skills like Wings of Mercy, Ground Orders, and Guidance, stuff like that. So you gotta keep that in mind as well. Just because you have gravity default does not mean that they will not be able to teleport. They can still teleport, and that is something you will have to keep in mind, especially if you use him in Ether Raid's offense. Damage reduction with Fallen Star is of course really strong, but keep in mind as time goes on, we are going to be getting skills that can counter damage reduction. We already have some of them, like Altina's Twin Blades can bypass damage reduction. We recently got Duo Leif who can have the damage reduction of many units, and we also have Deadeye that can completely break through the damage reduction, and him being an archer as well, who's a flying unit, is going to be susceptible to other archers with Deadeye, unless of course he runs something like Iod Shield, but still Deadeye is going to be an option that could be annoying, especially when he's getting attacked by them in his enemy phase. So Fallen Star is an extremely good slot B skill, and I'm just saying that it does have counterplays even though it looks really insane on the first look. He also comes with a rain skill. This time he has got speed defense rain. His brave version had attack speed rain. So overall, Claude appears to be a really strong unit, and the class of a bow flyer is really unique. We don't have too many units in that category, and that is always going to be having value no matter what, because it's such a rare class, and having, you know, skills like null follow-up, having the damage reduction as well as having the slaying effect in his bow is absolutely amazing, and it's so stacked. So I think that Claude is going to be ending up having a stat spread similar to this. So I think he's going to be having pretty high speed, which is to be expected, and he's going to be having, you know, nice attack stat, but not very high defenses, which is similar to Brave Claude, and he already gets like 80% damage reduction. Now, it might seem a bit underwhelming with his low defenses, but just keep in mind that Summer Mia gets the 75% damage reduction on her first hit, and she can be ridiculously bulky if you have ever faced her. She's definitely a nightmare for many units. So getting this kind of damage reduction on Claude along with an impact skill, if you could run that on him, makes him such an annoying unit to bait out. So overall, he's going to be a really good unit, but much more annoying unit to face in the hands of AI. So he's going to be a really common unit in the Earth Season and Arena, and he's also going to be common in Aether Raid's defense whenever Earth Season is going to be there. You could also use him in Aether Raid's offense. Like I said, the gravity effect does make it so that you can easily hit and run. But again, stuff like teleportation skills, odd recovery especially, can be a thing, and not to mention Harsh Command Plus can also get rid of the gravity effect. So gravity is really amazing, but I'm just reminding that it's not something that is permanent and does have counterplay. He's definitely one of the best bow units in the entire game. I'm really happy that he doesn't really trample the niche of Brave Claude, kind of what Legendary Dimitri did to Brave Dimitri. Claude at the end of the day still has his niche of healing up a lot of HP with the Wind Parthia weapon, and Legendary Claude doesn't really try to do something like that. Instead, he does something unique, and it's just really oppressive having null follow-up, damage reduction, and all of these things on a fast unit. As for the skill options, I would say that attack speed catch is a good option right out of the box, but as I said, sturdy impact is really good if you want to use him in player phase more so, and this is definitely something you should run if you're trying to use him in Aether Raid's defense, because his survivability is absolutely insane with an impact skill, the damage reduction, and the null follow-up that he has got. So extremely hard unit to, you know, bait out an enemy phase. The way you deal with Legendary Claude is that before he gets to activate his Fallen Star, you attack him in your player phase. So you just go in and attack him and take him out before he gets to attack you. And that's pretty much going to be the way that people can play around him. Close counter close foil can also be an option if you want to use him as a mixed phase unit. He's already kind of a mixed phase unit, but close counter close foil basically allows you to deal with even some really hard hitting, melee units, and the damage reduction that he gets after the Fallen Star effect is going to be helping him quite a lot in that regard. So those are always going to be option. If you don't really care about penalties and meeting the criteria of the cat skill, then attack speed solo is also an option. And if you want to use him more so as an enemy phase unit after you have triggered Fallen Star, then tier 4 stance skills is going to be a pretty good option. Unity skills in general are also a good option because they work in both phases, and something like this can be extremely good in Aether Raid's offense where debuffs are super common. So Unity skills can have a lot of value. Now in slot B, of course, Fallen Star is really insane. There's really not many options for range flyers to begin with, so it's a really good skill that you should most of the time run. Because he has got a null follow-up in his weapon, it means that he can basically do what Summer Violet does with Wind Sweep. So Wind Sweep is an option if you just want to make sure that he doesn't get counter-attacked. But even then, if he gets counter-attacked, the damage reduction from Fallen Star is already so insane that it doesn't really matter too much. He already does what he does with Wind Sweep, kinda, with Fallen Star. Personally, I would really never run Wind Sweep over Fallen Star, but still just an option that I wanted to put out there because I know many people are going to be asking me about that. So it's an alternate option, but Fallen Star is just the superior option in my opinion. And in the slot speed, defense rain is really good, but if you want to meet the criteria of the attack speed catch skill, then you could run a smoke skill like attack smoke. Pulse smoke can be nice in Ether Raid's offense. Attack speed rain could be helpful if you want to make him a bit more tanky so that attack debuff helps. Ground orders can definitely be useful in Ether Raid's defense teams or even just as a mobility option. But in Arena, if you want to use him as a plus 10 unit, then you definitely want to have a tier 3 slot C to have the max scoring. So something like Joint Drive Speed is basically going to be the option. Eyed Shield is basically his best Sacred Seal option because he is kind of susceptible to archers. But even without this, if he has got the Fallen Star effect active, then he can still survive some archers because of the insane damage reduction that he gets. Keep in mind that the damage reduction from Fallen Star is only on the first combat in the enemy phase or the player phase. So don't expect him to tank, you know, a lot of enemies at the same time. He doesn't really have the innate healing like Brave Claude. So he will go down if he gets, you know, ganged up by a lot of units. He's only going to be having damage reduction on the first combat. So you gotta really think smartly about which units you want him to get attacked by. And that's why the gravity effect of Fallen Star can come into the play and can definitely allow you with some options right there. So definitely a pretty unique and fun unit in my opinion, but equally unfun unit to face when other people are using him against you. Another thing which makes Claude a pretty strong legendary unit is the fact that he's a flying unit. The only other flying legendaries that we have are Legendary Grima and Legendary Ryoma, who are already outdated units. They're not really as good. And even though Claude is a flying unit, he still has access to skills which flying units normally don't have access to, like the null follow-up in his weapon and the damage reduction on Fallen Star. Of course, you know, guard bearing does exist, but like range flyers cannot have that. So he doesn't really lose out too much by being a flying unit, honestly, and being a flying unit for its mobility is a huge boon. Overall, I'm really happy. I'm definitely going to be trying to pull for him. And now let's go over some of the other units that are present on this banner. Mila was extremely dominant when she was released. Isolation was super powerful, but then we got Hell, who could increase the defense of the dancers. Then we got Dancer Eldigan, who's a free-to-play unit, and even at low investment, he can easily avoid isolation of Mila. And then we got Odd Recovery and Kia Staff on Sarah. And now we also have the 7th slot defensive mythics, which are just immune to isolation because they end their turn as soon as their phase starts. So over the time, I feel like isolation has lost a bit of its value because there are definitely going to be maps where Mila just cannot really isolate anything because there's Odd Recovery, there's Kia Staff. So stuff like that could be really annoying, but still isolation is always going to be a powerful tool to have on your Ether Raid's offense team, especially on an offense mythic unit who can also support you with Nurturing Breath, giving you the extra stats, and you could also increase your merges if you want to score higher. So isolation can still be pretty helpful in like shutting down restore traps or rally traps and stuff like that. She also has really good bulk to the point where she can soak dark shrines really well for any of your tanks. And overall, you should try to maximize on her defense stat because we do have Dancer Eldigan, who can be really annoying to isolate for Mila. So going with Fortress defense in both Slot A and Sacred Seal can be a really good thing. So overall, Mila is decent but has lost a bit of her value with the isolation, but still decent support unit. And she does have pretty good fodder in Bracing Stance 3 as well as the dual rally skill, which you can inherit at the same time. She's the only unit with Bracing Stance 3, and there are a lot of units, especially bulk units, who would love Bracing Stance 3 for the guard effect and the extra bulk. Legendary Leif is one of the best archers in the entire game because he has got Neuron Zeal, basically a ranged Gale Force, and he's the only unit who can do this right now in the game. And he's an extremely powerful Bow Cavalier. You don't essentially need a lot of merges or crazy investment on him. Even as a one-off copy, he's going to be providing you so much value, and he can also help you clear so many game modes, abyssal maps, and in other game modes like Ether Raids and Arena, he's also going to be a fantastic unit. I just have one-off copy of Legendary Leif, and I got so much value out of him in, you know, so many months ever since his release in something like Ether Raids. He's a fantastic hit and run unit right there, and the dual phase Brave bow that he has got is really amazing, and he has really min-max stat line by having decent bulk and having good attack stat. He is extremely slow and he's going to get doubled by most units, but still he's overall going to be a force to be reckoned with even as a one-off copy. For his fodder, it is a bit underwhelming. He only has attack res push 4. There are better units who can provide you attack res push 4 and also an additional skill. Legendary Leif can only provide you something like defense smoke, which is not really all that rare. So his fodder is not the most stellar, but he is extremely good unit himself. Triandra is a dark mythic unit who can boost your speed. She's not really as good with her preferred dance skill as some of the other fairy dancers, I would argue, but still she does have a lot of value being a mythic unit as well as a dancer, so definitely a very desirable unit for many people. The thing is that because of being a ranged dancer with good attack stat, Triandra is much easier to bait out compared to someone like Mirabilis in the anima season who's much harder to do that. Triandra having good offenses is like a double-edged sword because it can make it easier for her to get baited out, but at the same time when she's isolated by someone like Mila, she can double down as an offensive unit because she is pretty fast and she can also hit pretty hard. So she can also just function as a nuke, especially in her like bonus season, even if she's like isolated. Of course, the preferred thing is that she would just dance, and with Frightful Dream, she can spread the debuffs and the guard effect, which can be really annoying for many teams, especially tanks who want to work off the healing specials, so guard effect can be pretty annoying for them. She's definitely a pretty solid mythic dancer, but I still think that Bramimond is the best dark mythic unit that we have got, but Triandra is easily the second best because of being a dancer with a preferred dance skill in Frightful Dream, and Flower of Sorrow can also provide support to your team. So definitely a really good unit, and also has extremely good fodder in attack speed push 4 and speed res rain 3, which you can inherit at the same time. And Aerobatics is also a 5-star locked skill, so she also has that if you want to fodder her off for attack speed push 4 and Aerobatics 3. So overall a really fantastic fodder too. Annette is a really unique unit because of Crusher. So Crusher can basically give an extra movement to the ally who gets targeted by her rally skill. So this can allow even melee cavalry units to have extra movement. Ranged cavalry units like Reinhardt of course cannot get the extra movement because that would be too ridiculous. Fey maps are kind of small. So Crusher does have that unique niche, and Annette can be a really good unit herself even outside of the support that she provides with Crusher, because Crusher itself is a good weapon that has got the adaptive damage, so this can allow her to even deal with foes with extremely high defense but low resistance, so she can hit really hard against them. And she also has pretty good attack stat, so she can definitely hit extremely hard with something like attack speed push 4 or life and death, which does make it so that she can use heavy blade a bit better. Overall a really solid unit, and does provide you with some unique and good support with Crusher. She also provides you with some good fodder in defense res ruse and rally attack speed plus, which you could inherit at the same time. For defensive mythic units, being a melee unit can be a detriment at times, but Hell is one of the better melee defensive mythics in my opinion, because Hell's Reaper is a pretty good weapon that can give her the miracle effect against pretty much everyone except for staff units and magical units, and that's not the biggest problem because mages are not that common in Aether Raid's offense. Most of the opponents are going to be physically based, so she can activate her miracle pretty easily and even checkmate them by using Mystic Boost Sacred Seal, which is absolutely amazing option that she has got going for her Sacred Seal now. She can also provide extra defense with her mythic effect, which like I said is extremely valuable because most of the attackers are going to be physically based, so increasing your team's defense is also good. And she does come with a perfect base kit right off the bat. You don't really have to invest too much into her. Her preferred skill Inevitable Death is also a really good skill and can also help you support your allies because of its in-combat debuff. Overall, she's a pretty decent Dark Mythic. Obviously, someone like Bramimond and Triandra I would consider better as Dark Mythics, but still Hell can definitely provide that annoying factor to many teams, especially with the Mystic Boost Sacred Seal that we now have going. The only problem is that she exactly has 40 HP, so unless you have some merges on her or like increase her HP with like an HP seal or something like that, it can be really hard to face against Bolt Towers because the max level Bolt Towers will exactly do 40 damage and she has 40 HP, so that's why having minus HP IV or not having more HP can definitely be annoying, especially outside of her Aether Raid's bonus season. Whenever she's a bonus, that's no problem of course, but you gotta watch out for the Bolt Tower, especially when you're using Hell, so you could try to make use of the defensive catapult. She also provides pretty good fodder in distant counter and guard bearing, and this is gonna be a staple skill for any kind of defensive flyer who wants to make use of the enemy phase build, so both of these skills being inheritable at the same time is definitely pretty amazing. Melody is a 5-star log lance flyer without a preferred weapon, and that sentence alone just tells you how much competition she has to face. So she does have pretty good stat spread for Wyvern Flight, which is the skill that she comes with. She has got high attack, high defense, and has kind of workable speed, but has extremely low resistance. She's definitely one of the best users of Wyvern Flight, but there are also other units who can use Wyvern Flight who are easier to plus and merge, so that is something that many units can utilize using her fodder. She also does have attack defense solo, so that could be also something that you could fodder her off for, but keep in mind that attack defense solo on her base kit doesn't actually help her with activation of Wyvern Flight, because Wyvern Flight only activates using the visible stats. So you probably have to run something like Fury or Fortress Defense Res or something like that to increase her visible defense and visible speed. Her speed is at a point where it's not really too low and it's not really too high, it's just workable, but you gotta invest a bit into it to make use of Wyvern Flight to its full capability. As for fodder, she has got the rare Wyvern Flight skill, which, some units can definitely use, like Mini Nerva, Seteth, Volter. Those are some pretty popular merge projects, so those units can definitely utilize Wyvern Flight. And attack defense solo is also right there. She also comes with Instant Lance Plus, which is basically a mini sturdy impact lance. Being a flyer, they can already have access to the impact skills as it is, so maybe this could be given to a cavalry unit or an armor unit who cannot have access to the impact skill, so there it could be utilized as a fodder. Believe it or not, but Naga's value has gone up a bit because we have got Seros as the Anima Mythic unit who can open up the 7th slot, and if Seros ends up winning a Hero Rises or even comes on the banner that is going to be on the Hero Rises event, then she's definitely going to get much more common. So Naga's Divine Fang actually provides you with a lot of utility because Seros can be a pretty annoying unit to take out because of Dragon Wall and the fact that she can stop the doubles from the enemies if you're not having something like now follow up. So Divine Fang's effective damage can be really good for taking care of her. So Naga does have her value increased at this point in the game because of addition of Seros as a defensive mythic unit. And of course Duma was already a unit that was present before. But Seros is a bit more annoying than Duma, I would argue, because of the additional skills that you can have access to because of being an infantry unit. Other than that, Naga doesn't really provide you with anything. You have to run her as a support unit in Aether Raid's offense with like link skills, aerobatics and stuff like that. She is not really going to be that much helpful in doing damage or cleanup. She doesn't really have the supportive capabilities of Plumeria or the mobility of Regan and the Canto that she's got going. So still, I would say that she is going to be a bit of a liability, but Divine Fang can be a really good asset to your team, especially if Seros gets even more common. But still, you gotta use her in a way that can help you support your team in a way, and her base kit doesn't really do her too many favors other than Divine Fang. Her fodder is extremely underwhelming. Aether Raid's offense skills are really not something that you should run, and shield speed has been present on Grail units. It is worth noting that if you use her in your triple mythic core, then getting merges on her is going to be pretty helpful, and the more attack and speed that you can get is always going to be helpful in like cleaning up with like Wings of Mercy or just one-shotting dragon units. So getting merges is always going to be helpful on an Aether Raid's offense unit. Dragons right now in the game have it tough, but armor dragons have it even tougher. The dual weaknesses to armor and dragon effective weapons is certainly not very nice right now, and also the fact that she's an armor unit, she does have low mobility. So Legendary Tiki does struggle quite a bit, and if you do plus and merger for your arena core, then expect some suffering because you're going to be facing a lot of armor slayer and dragon slayer weapons. So that can be really annoying, even though she can be a pretty good scoring legendary unit on herself, especially because she's one of the older legendary units. As for being a unit herself, she is kind of like jack of all trades. She doesn't really have the highest attack, she isn't really all that fast, and she isn't the bulkiest. So she's kind of balanced with her stat spread, which can actually come to bite her back. So that can be a pretty annoying thing while using her. Still, she does have the distant counter weapon and Divine Mist that can also give you the effective damage against other dragons. And I would say that the best mode for dragons right now is pretty much Pawns of Loki because of the fact that they can provide you with extra combos, and Legendary Tiki is definitely pretty good right there with her preferred skill, which can also buff up the allies near her. So that's one of the better game modes for her, because outside of that, it's pretty brutal for armor dragons especially, and she's not someone like Duo Idun or Idun herself who has, penalty negation or a dual skill that can just get rid of the weaknesses that she's got going. So it can be a bit hard for her. Save skills are definitely a new thought that you could play with on Legendary Tiki. And as for fodder, she doesn't really have much. Fierce Breath, red skills in general are not the best slotted options for pretty much anyone. We just have so many better options that we can have on slotted defensively or even offensively. And there are units like Newer Veluria and Brave Lucina, of course, who can provide you with the breath effect. We even got a Forcer focus unit in Valentine Alphonse who has bold fighters, so definitely not that rare skill, and that's why she doesn't really have too much value as a fodder in my opinion. Altina is an Astro Mythic unit who can provide you with extra attack, and she did win last year's A Hero Rises event, so most people do have her as a free copy, but of course getting more merges on her is going to be good for Aether Raid's offense scoring. But in general, even outside of Aether Raid, she can be a pretty good unit because of her dual phase brave weapon and the fact that she has Ashera's Chosen, which can just patch up her weakness against bow units, but you gotta make sure that she's alone. She can be a pretty good vantage unit because of her dual phase brave weapon, but when it comes to Aether Raid's offense, of course, just like Naga, she doesn't really provide you with any kind of offense. She's a combat oriented mythic unit, which does have its value because in situations where you have to, double tank, it can definitely be helpful that Altina can hold her own weight and just take out many units, especially like green units, quite easily. So Altina can be useful, but of course, if you want utility and support, then Plumeria and Regan are the better options. But still, she can be used as a unit who can soak shields, especially the Dark Shrines, because of her bulk that she has got going for her. So that's also a way that people like to use her. And of course, using her as a Gale Force unit is also an option if you're having a team like that. So Altina can work out as a combat mythic unit, but don't expect her to clean up an entire good Aether Raid's defense team just by yeeting her into the range of enemies, because most good teams are going to be having hardy bearing and multiple vantage checks for Altina to make it tougher for her to do the cleanup. And because she's a mythic unit, she doesn't really get the extra stats from other mythic units, but she's definitely pretty good in her bonus season, which is going to be rotating. As for fodder, she doesn't really have anything other than attack, defense, oath, and we did get speed rest oath as a free-to-play skill on Dehorba recently, so we're probably gonna get attack, defense, oath as well at some point, so really not that good as a fodder, honestly. As far as enemy phase cavaliers go, Legendary Seliph is pretty much one of the best ones because of the fact that he has got a really good preferred weapon that can give him extra bulk and firepower, and also give him the self-sustain with the healing. And his preferred slot B skill is basically like an enemy phase version of Desperation, so many times he can just take out the foes before they even get to, double him. But that is susceptible to stuff like null follow-up and also hardy bearing, so you gotta watch out for that. Legendary Seliph can be a pretty good enemy phase unit, but outside of that, he's not really gonna be functioning in the player phase that well. So the best way to get rid of him is just to bait him out, so that's one of his weaknesses. But still, in your hands, he is gonna be a pretty good unit to be used as an enemy phase cavalier. He's of course not invincible. You gotta make sure that he could pump up his attack to make sure that he can take out the foes before he gets hit by their second hit. So that is something that he could do with his support as well as the Sacred Seal. And he can run something like Heavy Blade Bonfire, which can just allow you to have much better damage output. So overall, a pretty good enemy phase cavalier, but definitely not the most insane legendary unit that we have got, as we have much more disgusting degenerate legendary units in the game. Seliph is definitely one of the more tame ones. As for his fodder, he can provide you with distant counter and joint hone defense at the same time. I wish this was joint drive defense because drive skills are just more universally useful. For getting value out of the joint hone skills, you gotta be beside the ally at start of the turn, but still it's a tier 3 slotsy skill at the end of the day, so that's really amazing for arena scoring because you get 2 high scoring skills at the same time from Legendary Seliph. Hrid definitely has some competition and does face some troubles. First of all, being a wind legendary unit, he doesn't really score as high as the modern legendary pair-up units like Legendary Corrin or Legendary Ellie would, and the fact that he's a sword cavalier automatically means that he's going to be facing quite a bit of competition. He can work as a mixed phase cavalier, of course, but if you want like an enemy phase cavalier, then Legendary Seliph is right here on this banner as well, who can score better in arena and who also has, just much better preferred weapon, has self-sustain, and also has a preferred skill which is much better. If you want a player phase cavalier, then Eliwood is of course the option, and if you want another mixed phase cavalier option, then I would argue that Sigurd with Divine Tearfing Weapon Refine is really good as a mixed phase cavalier as well because of the auto follow-up and the damage reduction. So Hrid definitely has quite a bit of competition, definitely has not aged that well because his weapon only gives you an auto follow-up and stops the follow-up of the enemy, which is kind of insane to say that this kind of weapon is not enough, because I wish this gave him like more stats or something. And his preferred skill is really not that good. It can only target one ally at the same time, so I hope that he can get some skill refinements like Fiorm and Legendary Eye to his preferred skill. So that would definitely make him a bit better, but still overall a decent unit, but nothing really too special, I would say. He can provide you with distant counter fodder, and now some people might say, why are you rating a distant counter as 3 out of 5? Well, the thing is that distant counter is the most available premium skill in the entire game. You could look that up, and there's so many units with distant counter, so at this point you gotta evaluate them based on what extra skill do they provide you along with distant counter. For example, he can just provide you with attack smoke and that's it. That's a skill from 4-star Kaze. On the other hand, Legendary Seliph can provide you with distant counter and joint hone defense, which is a tier 3 slot C skill, so that has more value inherently. So that's why I would just rate him 3 out of 5, because distant counter is the only fodder that he has got. Of course, this is a really good fodder, but there are other units who can provide you with more options along with distant counter as for inheritance. Overall, colorless is the strongest pool on this banner, having someone like Legendary Claude, who's so strong, along with Mila, who's an Ether 8's offense mythic, as well as Legendary Leif, who's also one of the best archers in the entire game, is just gonna be really amazing for the overall value. So try to focus on that. And after that, I would say that green is the most valuable color. Green does have Annette, Hell, and also Triandra. Triandra is rather recent mythic unit, so if you were not able to get her before, then getting her can add to the value of Ether 8's defense. And then after that, probably red color, because red color at least has like 2 distant counter fodders. Blue pool doesn't have too much for fodder other than Melody's Wyvern Flight or attack defense solo, so it doesn't really have too good of a fodder. Naga just provides nothing for fodder, so you know, most people are going to be focusing on colorless and green pool on this banner. Now keep in mind that we are going to be getting a Hero Rises event the next month, and there's also going to be a mythic unit next month. So make sure that you don't drain yourself too hard on this banner, because we do have some great banners that are going to be happening in March, especially the Hero Rises event banner, which is going to be having the Spark, and it is definitely going to be one of the strongest banners that we have got in the game. I'm personally going to be summoning on this banner because I like Claude a lot, and he's color sharing with some really great units, so colorless has good value. So look forward to my summoning video, and as always, hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to share this video with your friends who are also Claude fans and want a rundown of this legendary banner. And I want to thank all of my team members for their constant support, and if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as annoying as it is gonna be to face Legendary Claude all the time in the Earth season. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.